Joining me now, Democratic Congressman from Illinois, Mike Quigley. He's our good friend and co-chair of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus, and he also sits on the House Appropriations Committee. And it's good to see you here. So Donald Trump, he has certainly criticized U.S. support for Ukraine and Biden's move to allow Kyiv to use U.S. weapons on Russia. Are you as optimistic as your colleague about the administration working as a team during this transition?
No, I'm very concerned with what the Trump administration will or won't do there. I was there just days before the election for the fourth time in the 1,000-day war. The concerns, even the best of situations with U.S. help, is a manpower question. Ukraine's 1/4 the size of Russia, and Putin's willing to use his soldiers as cannon fodder. So that's tough enough as it is. The gap in funding that took place because my Republican colleagues delayed that additional supplemental for months has created another disadvantage. And nothing President Trump as candidate has said has given me any optimism that he will pass the supplemental or do what's necessary to help Ukraine win the war.
That delay you just mentioned, with the major moves by the Biden administration that I was talking about in Ukraine this week, why did the president wait until now to take these measures? Are you concerned about Russia's reaction to allowing Ukraine to strike the country with U.S. weapons at this point in the war?
Well, the first part has been a problem throughout the war. There's no one outside of Ukraine who deserves more credit for the war going as well as it has for Ukraine than President Joe Biden. He united NATO. He made sure the funding was there. But you touch on a point that has been a sore spot, and that is whenever there was requests for long-range artillery, tanks, F-16s, the ability to strike into Russia, the Biden administration said no, then finally yes, which I think put Ukraine at a bit of a disadvantage. Nothing like a Trump administration would, and this war is still winnable.
More than 160 countries banned the use of anti-personnel landmines because of the risk to civilians, although the U.S. is not a signatory to that treaty, and the mines it will provide to Ukraine, they are supposed to deactivate at least after some time. Was this an appropriate move? I mean, just because Russia's using them, does that mean the U.S. should set aside its own principles?
Look, it's a brutal decision, and I think one that had to be made. It goes back to what I just said. When the manpower is 4-to-1 and you're facing not just a loss of your country, but I saw firsthand in Bucha, I stood on a mass grave. I saw what Putin's capable of doing and the war crimes that the Russian army has committed and will commit. And what the loss of Ukraine and the threat to NATO and Eastern Europe and ultimately to the United States means a very difficult decision, but one I think they had to make.
So Donald Trump has pledged to end the war. He says he can do it on day one. Could Biden's efforts help put Ukraine in a better negotiating position now?
Look, any gains that are made both inside Russia and regaining property that has been occupied by the Russians would help give them some sense of satisfaction. But the bottom line is there's no way in the world you can do what the president-elect is talking about and not give Putin a victory. And it does nothing to guarantee the security guarantees that would have to be put in place. And all the other questions, who's going to hold Russia accountable for war crimes? Who's going to help rebuild a multi-trillion-dollar job, rebuild Ukraine? And the fact is, if you give them the land that they occupy currently, you're rewarding this kind of behavior. Autocrats, aggressive military people across the world will look at this and say, oh, see, you can be rewarded if you do this. And there's absolutely no accountability.
Okay, well, we are rewarded for your presence on the show. Mike Quigley, thank you so much and happy Thanksgiving. Meantime.